A lot has been happening here on the continent, and to put this into perspective and how it is impacting the commodity market outlook, we are joined by Nick Kwolek, the founder of Qualco, who joins us live from Nairobi. Nick, it's always great having you on the show to just set pace for this conversation. Just do give us an overview of the commodity market space here in the region.
Okay, thanks for having me as always, Fiona. It's good to be back on. So yeah, just to give you a quick overview of what's going on, there are various headwinds to the market across, multiple sectors, be it minerals, metals, ag. As a lot of the viewers would have seen, we are in a bit of a commodity super cycle at the moment, and there is kind of rampant commodity inflation happening globally, and Africa, East Africa, Central Africa, Southern Africa, and none of the continent is immune to this. So, we've seen rapidly rising food prices, rapidly rising energy prices, rapidly rising metals prices, across the continent. You add to this a degree of shipping crisis with much higher break bulk and container freights, and it really hits the consumer in the pocket, and that is becoming all too apparent now. So there's a lot of headwinds that we're facing in the markets at the moment, and it doesn't look like it's going to be easing anytime soon.
Yeah, and Nick, to just add on to the conflict that is happening in Ethiopia, we're seeing also some security concerns happening in just next door in Uganda. How is this really going to affect the overall commodity pricing in the region?
Yeah, I mean, Ethiopia is a big one because obviously it's a big country, 120 million people. It's a big import market for a lot of commodities. The struggles that are taking place there are very real. You've got the rebel forces very close to the capital now. A lot of people evacuating, be it FMCG companies, be it governments, be it intergovernmental organizations. You've got a lot of people leaving the country, and it keeps a big black hole in the region, and makes trade and then food for sure a big question mark. Add to that, you've also got a very dry period. We're going into a serious drought in the region. I mean, Somalia even put an emergency drought measure in last week, and that's been affecting Ethiopia as well. And we could be in for a very rough ride over the next few weeks. You also touched on Uganda with security concerns, and very similar situation. With the drought up there as well. So it's not an easy position across Eastern Africa at the moment.
Yeah, you've touched on Ethiopia, and just staying in that country, we're seeing you've touched on the conflict and the concerns that are rising, but also looking at a drought. We're also seeing some of the supply routes being blocked from Djibouti. What long-term impact will this have in the country's commodity space?
So yeah, as you touched on, part of the road up from Djibouti to Addis, the capital, is partially blockaded at the moment. And what that means is that Djibouti is the main port access along with Berbera, but it's still very much the main port access to Ethiopia. And if that road is blocked, it means that essential supplies of sugar, rice, cooking oil, wheat flour just can't flow sustainably into the country. And as I touched on, we're in a serious drought at the moment. And, if you can't get imports in and there's a drought, you risk having a full-blown humanitarian crisis. Add to this the lack of dollars in the country. It makes it harder for traders to get paid in dollars, which is obviously, what they need to mitigate against in the long run. They've got to get paid dollars for their inputs, for their commodity inputs. And if you can't get dollars, it just puts people off, and it's making trading Ethiopia incredibly tough at the moment, and could add a lot of fuel to the fire that's already raging there.
Yeah, we've seen under the African Union Agenda 2063, the strategy that has been put in place, the African Commodity Strategy. Does it come at a right time to answer to some of these challenges that are happening within the continent? How relevant is it?
Yeah, I think this is it's a very important long-term strategy to be in place. I mean, I'd kind of like to see it 2040 really. I mean, it's a long way off, and I think that Africa can get to where they want to get to probably a little bit quicker than that. one of the big issues that we see, and it's not just in food commodities, it's also in, metals, minerals, et cetera, is that, you've got this wonderful abundance. I mean, if you take somewhere like the DRC, for example, you've got the large proportion of the world's cobalt deposits, which, are very important for battery manufacturing, semiconductors, mobile phone chips, et cetera, all of that raw material just leaves the continent without being processed further. If you could build or start building manufacturing, whether it's battery manufacturing, end user goods manufacturing on the continent, at least you keep a lot of that value on the continent. And it's a shame to see that leaving. And I think that's what this AU directive seeks to address. We are seeing that the continent is becoming more self-sufficient in food commodities. There's a lot of investment going on. So to a degree, the private sector is puzzling this out on their own, because they see the potential that Africa has at the moment.
Yeah, so but definitely this is going to be a long term. That's when we'll start seeing the impacts. It's definitely not going to be short term. Even looking at what is happening currently, presently, just looking at the impact that this is expected out of the AU Agenda 2063 strategy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, now, Nick, the last time we had you on the conversation, we were talking about the shipping prices, just looking at how the COVID-19 pandemic had impacted the supply chains, not only on the continent, but globally. Just give us an outlook. How is the space looking currently? How the prices, are they still skyrocketing as the previous conversations we had?
So, yeah, I mean, but since the last conversation, both container and break bulk rates have gone higher. However, break bulk, big shipping, what Guy was discussing on this interview a little bit earlier, the area he covers, that has now seen a very, very sharp correction. So the Baltic Index is down significantly, and therefore big ships, wherever they are in the world, be it from Brazil to Africa, from the Indian subcontinent to Africa, for example, have come down dramatically in price. I mean, if you look at India to Eastern Coast Africa, that rate has come down by roughly 35% in the last 3 weeks. And eventually what that will do is it will have an impact on container freights as containers becoming, the gulf between containers and big ships, widens. You'll see a lot more trade, again, switching to larger ships, and therefore should cool off container volumes. But we're not really seeing that happening yet. I think we're in the run up to the festive period across lots of parts of the world, and that's keeping a lot of pressure on supply chains. But we do expect to see a degree of correction in Q1 to Q2 of next year, which should help to ease supply chain woes and hopefully bring down prices a little bit for consumers.
Okay.